thank you again, everybody, for joining. And I really enjoyed our session yesterday. As I mentioned today, I'll dive a little bit deeper into digital transformation. As I mentioned during yesterday's presentation, Panduit really likes to look at the macro trends, right? Because there's sort of this what I would call a cause and effect. So as technologies change, as applications change, regulations, standards change, we like to understand really what that means overall. And then at the end of the day, we like to really boil that down to what it means to our business, right? How we partner, how we can provide additional value to our customers and our partners, because that's really what happens when things shift in the market. Opportunities become available. So, this term digital transformation, it's been out for a long time. I won't tell you it's new. We've all heard it for a while, but I just want to spend a little time today to walk through kind of what it is, why it's being adopted, some of the benefits, and then really in the end, what that means for us. As I said, what does it mean for our business? How do we help our customers mutually succeed in this space? So again, thank you. And I know it's very difficult. I appreciate your patience to be listening to these remote presentations. I know it's a very difficult time. Would love to be there in person, but thank you again for your time and your patience as we continue on this remote format. So digital transformation, right? What does that provide? Digital transformation is many things, but what does it provide? Initially, obviously, these shifts, they provide change. Digital transformation, as it says, it's transforming. There's change coming, and when we look at this overall, it also provides really it's based around access to data and data analytics, right? So when we talk about digital transformation, the name digital, things being digitized, being more available, free flowing, more abundant. So this transformation is providing deeper and wider analytics, right? We hear about big data and data analytics. This is really at the core of what's providing the value around digital transformation. Digital transformation also provides change, more change, right? So in everything, in the way our processes are laid out, the way we design and operate our facilities, how we manage our companies, how we engage with customers, right? There's the old way, there's the new way. So again, there's change, there's abundant change being driven by digital transformation. Additionally, digital transformation is providing, I think for years, a lot of us talked about being very customer centric, which I think is true, good intentions, but this really drives the customer first. It's their perspective, looking at end users initially, right? Taking the journey in the end user's eyes and figuring that out. I think a lot of that is driven between their expectations and the technology. So for example, mobile applications, right? Prior to that, just talking about retail, for example, customers would have to come to a store, a proper brick and mortar store, conduct their shopping, transact, and now customers can shop whenever they want online through a mobile device. And so, that little example shifted how we build out our infrastructure and kind of really what the expectations are from that end user. So when we say customer centric or customer first, digital transformation is providing that view. Again, digital transformation, providing change in people's jobs, roles and responsibilities, authority. It also provides a better customer experience. Although we take a customer first look, it is truly improving the customer experience, right? I mentioned yesterday, if you recall, I talked about data centers. Data centers are only really built to support the business, the application, the healthcare facility, the educational facility. They're sort of what they call a necessary evil to conduct business. Same thing with digital transformation, right? All this customer first, customer centric, big data analytics is really to improve the customer experience. So before I click on the next one, does anyone want to guess what it also provides, right? I've got change, access to data, change, customer first, change, improve customer experience. In the end, it really does provide opportunities. As I mentioned, digital transformation for us and all of us is a way to improve our methodologies, our designs, our routes to market, our operational efficiency. Anytime, as I mentioned, any kind of technology shift or next generation move, there are always opportunities for us to go forth and help our customers and partners succeed. So when I think back of a digital transformation for us is something that provides a lot of opportunities, a lot of change, but ultimately therein lies some real opportunities for us to move forward. So what drives people to make this journey? What is the digital transformation journey? So I thought, well, maybe instead of trying to describe what it is, maybe we talk about really what it's not, right? So digital transformation is not just the digitizing of information, right? That process has been going on for a long time. We know all about the data, structured, unstructured data. Digital transformation is not the process of just digitizing the information. It's also not, this is very important, this will come up later, it's also not one person's responsibility or an individual, right? So when a company or organization or a university wants to go digital transformation, it's not going to be one group or one individual department to lead that change. This is a huge, huge undertaking. It's also not just a simple software hardware upgrade, right? We've seen some technology shifts in the past where maybe a project or an application implementation suffices and is fulfills the need. Digital transformation is not that. It's more than just a software hardware upgrade. And probably most importantly, right, as I talked about opportunities, there are definitely opportunities, but this is not a sprint. It's not something quick and overnight. It is a marathon. The scope of a real digital transformation, a successful digital transformation, is extended across multiple groups in multiple areas. It's not a quote unquote one and done or project. It is an entire process and overhaul for organizations. And with that, there's about 4 primary elements, right? Just maybe people look at it differently, maybe more, they combine them, but really just to give you a scope, when we talk about opportunities, this won't be a chance to go out and talk to customers on a project basis. If we really want to win in the space and be valuable and trusted advisor, we have to look at things like not just the technology. Again, for us, our purposes, that's the core, right? We know there's technology shifts to enable the digital transformation, no question. The technology is one of the prime categories. Additionally, that data piece I mentioned before, all of this revolves around data, big data, data analytics, artificial intelligence, machine-to-machine learning, right? As data becomes available, that's one thing. We've seen all the charts on the exponential growth in data, and that's great. We can collect data and have been collecting data for years. The real trick is, what do you do with that data? How do you analyze that? Who does that data go to? And then equally as important, what actions do you take with that data? Collecting data for the purpose of collecting it is of no value, right? So when we talk about things like Internet of Things or Internet of Everything, we can pull data just about off any IP addressable device. No real trick to that, but what you do with that data, how you use that data, is really at the core of the digital transformation process. And from that, right, we hear there's many benefits from this, but really the operational efficiencies from digital transformation. So getting your business, this is where the longer term view comes in, making your business available in a real digital format, meaning you're understanding the customer experience, the journey, how you integrate your systems. And especially today, when you think about things like the supply chain challenges we're all having, right? Companies that were fully integrated or further along in integration, look at their supply chain, check their raw materials, have lead time visibility, hugely important. But if you're operating on old systems or you're only partially there, right? The operational side of not being digitally transformed will provide challenges going forward. And the one that maybe doesn't get talked about quite often or the most is culture, right? As I mentioned more than a few times, this is a big process. It's a big change. And it's more than just providing a nice website for a customer to come on and do some browsing and shopping and ordering. It really is throughout the entire company, right? So to get to a digital transformed environment, all the groups, all the functions inside the company, many companies really have to overhaul their entire process depending on what vertical market they're in or what their legacy systems are. But this is a huge cultural change where roles and responsibilities, authority, accountability, all become shifted. It's not just, it is customer centric, but the impact it has inside your company could be good or bad. This can really drive a lot of great collaboration, but if it's not done properly, it can cause a lot of consternation, right? A lot of conflict. And just to take a quick look, so what do we see today? We talk about digital transformation, but where are we seeing it today? Well, I think everybody would agree, and this has been going on for some time, right? Collecting data. As you know, when you go on a website, when you launch an application, when you visit a hotel, when you fly in an airplane, everybody wants to know how the experience was, right? And to a point, sometimes this is overwhelming. I feel like we're filling out surveys all the time. But besides getting a big quality view of that is a great indicator for them to capture the data, right? And then they're going to start building a profile around that. So, although we see it quite a bit, this is exactly at the core of participating in a digital transformation world. And then from that, right, a lot of loyalty programs. So frequent flyer programs, you stay at certain hotels, restaurants, places you vacation, right? you get a set of perks, which is great, right? It's a give to get. You'll get some perks out of participating, but really that entity continues to build out your profile. Your information is invaluable, right? They really see value in understanding what it is you prefer, right? Because from that, companies can now start doing targeted marketing, right? Marketing has really evolved over the years, but now they can actually take a very prescriptive approach to make sure, and it works both ways, right? The company is providing you the information that they know based on your profile, your data that you're interested in. So that works for them. And as the end user customer experience, you appreciate that because you're getting information that is relevant to you, right? So as we fill out these surveys, you join a loyalty program, the targeted marketing really becomes really quite impactful. Outside of that, we're seeing things, right, from product customization, whether it's business to business or business to consumer, product customization. People really want to be able to customize those product sets, right? So you see it in cases where, whether it's shoes or apparel, clothing, automotive, even housing, you can go in and start building that customization because the data you've provided and the systems the companies have provided allow that type of customization. Again, we're seeing, even in our business, we're seeing a lot more requests for unique solutions that really solve the customer's needs. So if you think about the database itself, like a Facebook, social media outlook tool, very powerful, but in and of itself on the surface, the value is really the data that they collect on the individuals, where they network to, what they're interested into. So folks like Facebook and other large companies have huge databases. That's really the core and the value of their service, not so much the application itself on the surface, but it's that database they're building down below. And then lastly, again, we're virtual today, but virtual experiences. So we're seeing a lot more of this where people can customize not just a product, but a house, living space, hotels. They can design their entire houses through a virtual experience. Again, getting the information sent to them that they want. It can be customized. They can view that. So it's really been quite dynamic when you look at the amount of data and how pointed and targeted and what they do with the data and how impactful that is. It's quite powerful. So this is a very, very busy slide, but it's really what it's showing at a high level. I didn't want to put a bunch of these statistics down. I think I could bring to you the 60% savings, the 80% operation efficiencies. This is more of a high level. On the left side of the slide, that's really for the customer or the end user. So again, they're going to see better overall experiences. There's going to be increased loyalty to those brands. They're going to see differentiation from competitors. They're going to have access to products and services that they're unique to their needs, right? Again, mainly around retail or maybe automotive, but they really prefer that because they feel that they are a part of a loyalty program or the company's listening and they can execute on that. And then from that, they're going to realize the benefits much quicker and more consistently, right? So if you're engaged in the process and you're providing information, the expectation is the turnaround is the company is going to develop those products or deliver those product sets to you more efficiently, more consistently. And on the right-hand side, these are really for the enterprise, the organization, right? They get the data-driven customer insights. They're going to become more agile. Again, this isn't just a website. This is everything through your organization, sharing information, systems, integration across the board. It will be able to drive better employee engagement culture. It has to. When you think about the collaboration that has to take place, ultimately you become more efficient. And from that, you increase your profits and your margins. You're going to have better data collection. And today, more than ever, you're going to have a better supply chain management, right? So we go through this all the time at Panduit as a global manufacturer. And all that sits core, that big data in the middle, that information is flowing to and from and back and forth. But ultimately, this is the proverbial win-win situation for everybody that's involved in the process. So we look specifically in the Middle East. What are some of the drivers behind digital transformation? Well, we all see this image, right? Unfortunately, this is the coronavirus, the COVID-19. But in all honesty, in all seriousness, this has really driven a lot of the transformation, right? The pandemic itself has forced companies, both have succeeded and not so much, but it has accelerated the drivers. And so basically, a lot of surveys out there have talked about 2/3 of the business leaders have talked about the pandemic accelerating their digital experience much faster than used to. Some people have said we've moved IT projects and processes in a year's time that would have taken 3 years. So some companies were on the journey, many were, but the pandemic has really shortened that timeline and accelerated their efforts. I talked a little bit about this yesterday, right? So in the Middle East, the number of internet users, 32% have access to it. As that number continues to grow, right? That's a great statistic for your territory where the adoption rates, getting access to the internet, becoming more connected, if you will, is going to help continue driving the uptake in the Middle East. So I look at that as a tremendous opportunity for more users, more applications, more uptake. Additionally, this might be a little hard to see, but this is revolving around the social. A lot of these applications you see here are the growth. This is what goes on in 1 minute in the internet. A lot of these are social media applications, but again, in your region, as some of these applications are adopted and become more pervasive, wider spread. Again, back to the pandemic, I think this has driven some of these applications, but I think the region by where you operate, some of these social media applications are going to continue to grow and become wider. Again, I think the the average age very young through the region, so I think there's going to be more uptake driving the social media. And governments, governments are seeing this again, probably expedited their approach as well, right? Government incentives, government backing. So when you look in Saudi Arabia, they're pushing for 5 gigacities, right? So that's going to drive a lot of digital content, a lot of integration, a lot of smarts. Egypt has 34 digital cities planned. So these are all things that are going to continue to drive data sharing, internet network traffic. Dubai is driving, they have a digital authority authorization team that they're driving for this. So basically, in the region, there's a huge diversification for economics, right? And this is great because when you look at the infrastructure through the region, I would call it newer, relatively newer. There's not a lot of legacy systems. So when you talk about a blank canvas to build on to support this growth for the adoption of the internet, social media use, government incentives, right? Having that infrastructure build out and diversifying economies is going to be great. There won't be so much to overcome in terms of legacy environment. So I think things are really shaping up strong throughout your region for this. So with the opportunities, right, there are some changes, and I'll kind of read through these, but they're challenges, right? So some of the challenges are, again, as I mentioned, the rate of adoption. It is definitely being accelerated by the pandemic. Even though I said digital transformation is a marathon, not a sprint, there are things being pulled in much more quicker than in the past. But that could be a very much as a benefit to us as we form that subject matter expertise and that trusted advisor with our customers. There's also going to be a never-ending increase in volume of content, data. It's going to be created, shared, stored, and secured, right? We see the numbers again, they're exponential, they're growing, but the ability to take that data and act and do something intelligently with that is hugely important. There are risks of moving workloads. I touched on this a little bit yesterday, but moving types of workloads, where do they go in that hybrid IT model? Again, these applications are going to live somewhere, right? And the good news is our infrastructure will support that, but we have to be really engaged with the customers to realize what their challenges are and what their hybrid IT strategies look like. Security too. Security is a big issue, right? It's a big challenge. Physical security, data security, application security. We can't forget these as we move forward. Outside of that, it's all, as I mentioned, all about the applications. So if the applications don't run or if it's not a great experience, that's going to be problems, right? The newer, younger users, if they have issues with the website, if it doesn't work the first couple of tries, they'll move on. All sorts of statistics out there that they will move on to another company, another application. So system legacy, system performance is hugely important, whether it's in a remote data center, a centralized data center out at the edge. It has to perform and it has to perform well. And then lastly, the challenges are really changing the mindset. I said digital transformation changes an entire company's mindset, a journey, if you will. It also means things the way we design, new architectures, have to be more flexible. They have to scale. We've heard this in the past, right? But I don't think we've seen the drivers, the amount of volume and the pace of change happening now, where these really become prominent, that you have an IT infrastructure that is flexible and can scale up or scale down depending on the customer's needs. So really it starts with understanding. When we boil it down to the data center, right, is understanding. You have to have a starting point. You have to understand your current environment. So where we think we provide value when there's going to be impact is looking in these 4 areas for space and density, things around power, cooling is always going to remain top of mind, and network connectivity, right? So for us, we look at the environment in those 4 major buckets. And the way that we kind of want to understand it is getting in and do an assessment of what the environment looks like, looking at the inventory of assets, and looking at capacity and thresholds, right? We see a lot of data centers today, older design, over provision, not able to scale up or down. And usually what happens is the customer or your partner or client runs out of one of these topics or multiple, right? They run out of space, they might run out of cooling, they might run out of bandwidth, right? So it starts with getting an assessment of what the environment looks like, what assets they have, and then where are they going to be limited in capacity? Are there ways that we can extend that life cycle before we make the next, network design change or data center design change? And so for looking at next steps, right, is busy, as I said in the first slide, it's not one person, it's not one department from the overall digital transformation approach. When you look at the data center, right, none of us can do it. Even though we think we're very integrated and really capable, we have to become part of the roadmap process. We have to talk with customers, include your partners, right? Build that ecosystem, understand where everything's going, because when you talk about, as I mentioned, a cause and effect, there is a direct impact on our business and how we can succeed with that. Work with your local technology provider, work with the IT providers, right? And look for a complete system. You don't want the physical infrastructure to become the bottleneck. This is really kind of ironic. In my experience, physical infrastructure, we've built them in the past. There's a lot of bandwidth, there's a lot of headroom. It never was the issue, right? There were other issues in the network. Well, now that we're creating flatter network architectures, more data traveling, what we call east to west, that physical infrastructure could become the bottleneck. You don't want that to be the case. So interact with those IT providers. A topic I'll cover in another slide or two is deploying some level of intelligence, right? We build a nice data center, we operate it, but we know they change the next day, right? There's things for capacity limits and operational efficiencies. You have to have better utilization. At the core of digital transformation is data. So that's customer data, right? That's e-commerce data, but also data on your facility. So this is an area maybe years past we called it DSIM. I'm not talking about a full category DSIM, but some level of data or intelligence around maybe your power, your performance, your asset tracking. This has to take place, otherwise the operational efficiencies will be gone in the next day. And then lastly, you want to have provisions for that growth. You want to enable a seamless migration plan as we go forward. So again, looking at things like space and capacity, power, cooling, network connectivity, done the right way, giving you a roadmap to move forward in a cost-effective manner. Really, to close the slide off, if you think about, and we see this today, thinking about maybe 400 gig today and how you migrate it back. This is a different approach than saying 10, 40 gig up to 100 gig, 400 gig. We're seeing customers at 400 gig, right? So the thought process here is maybe changing our thinking is think 400 gig first and how you migrate that back to 100 gig environment today, right? It sounds it's a different view of trying to migrate forward, but we're seeing customers adopt 400 gig much faster than we would ever expected. And this chart kind of depicts that. So, right, we've looked at different adoption rates for the different technology and bandwidth requirements, and this is basically showing, the growth of 400 gig switch ports, which again, cause and effect. Those switch ports need to tie to infrastructure. You're going to have infrastructure today that supports 400 gig. Now, I know many of you say my customers are at 10 gig or 40 gig, and I get that. That makes sense. But overall, from a global market, this is what the adoption rates are around 400 gig, probably one of the fastest bandwidth adoptions. I think it's been truncated down to about a year and a half adoption rate compared to some of the earlier 10 and 40 gig adoption rates. So it's happening, it's really occurring. So again, that mindset, think about what 400 gig looks like today and how do you build, back to that for 100 gig as opposed to the other way around. And so I'm going to cover four product areas that if we were asked today, what would you specify inside a data center to help transform, scale up and down and grow, be seamless? It starts when we look at space and density and connectivity, right? So things like our HD Flex system, right? This, you can see the numbers here, it's high capacity. Again, some of you might look at that and go, that's more capacity I need. We would tell customers HD Flex is probably one of the best starting points, whether you provision it out day one or day 101. This is something that's going to save your space and the densities to allow your customers to grow and not have to do a rip and replace inside that facility. You can see a lot of the benefits here, the high density per RU, right? This can scale. There's a lot of things built in there from an operational benefit where we have an A and a B side, so it's not disruptive. Again, I said, don't let your physical layer be your weak link. We want to make sure that the operational side, that one, we can address the density, and two, it's operational, as evidenced by our Uniboot here, right? So we can build out high density environments, but if your users can't get access to that port or the disruptive other ports, or they accidentally take down another port, that's a huge issue. So when Pando designs these systems, we look at across the board and day-to-day on the operational side. And lastly, the PAN MPO connector, right? This is a great, what we would hope everybody puts this in their data center because of the benefits you see here, changing the polarity, changing the gender. If you look at the CapEx piece, we can replace about 6 different standard cable assemblies, right? So as much as, again, we think we know what's coming down on the technology side and bandwidth requirements, you never know. This gives you the ability to change it on the fly. It's not as disruptive, and there's a cost savings tied to that. So that would be one product category. And then we look at simplifying. Again, I mentioned 400 gig. Panduit's put out a tremendous amount of information to move here. So this is work we've completed with our partner Cisco, our alliance partner, where we can look at the transceiver applications by selecting it off an easy table. We can actually identify what product sets for Panduit go with that. And then there's a whole multitude to build those channels out. So again, if you think 400 gig, how do I get started? What does that look like? This will get you all the way from the Cisco transceiver to the channel link and connectivity, all the product sets. This is all available, by the way, today at panduit.com. You can get this information from cisco.com as well, but we want to simplify that, right? That's our goal, is to make sure as you're building out designs and configurations, we can simplify that process across the entire value chain. Second product category is cooling. So again, every data center, power and cooling. So what I would say here, let me just build this out. We have a lot of options. The thought process here, this is passive cooling, right? There's cost savings and benefits to this. This is going to continue no matter what type of environment you build out. And the example I've been using for a long time, whether you're at home or at your hotel or driving in your car and you have the air conditioner on, you never drive around with your windows down, right? You never have your windows down at home. You want those windows up. You want to seal off that environment. You want to make it operational efficient. You want that temperature to maintain. Same process here, a passive cooling system, whether it's cold aisle containment, hot aisle chimney, that's only going to augment your environment, your customer's environment from their active cooling. So think of those windows, roll those windows up, put in some type of containment system, some type of cooling system. This is, again, the second piece we would tell you, in addition to a high density fiber environment, look for cooling solutions, passive cooling solutions that can augment the active cooling. There's 0 points of failure here. There's no power draw. This is basically like that window. That window's closed. It's going to increase that air conditioning efficiency. The third area is power, right? When you look at the entire power chain, I said power and cooling for sure, every data center. You look at the power chain here, all the way from where the power source is generated, all the way to the IT loads, right? It's that PDU. So when you get down to the cabinet level, right? This is more than just a PDU. So as I said yesterday, every data center has power and cooling. But when you look at the power infrastructure as a true differentiator, right? As opposed to just a basic PDU, there's a lot more opportunity and a lot more value built into, in this case, the Panduit PDU, where you can read the benefits that are here. It's more than that. Panduit took an approach that PDUs are going to be in every cabinet, 2 or 4, which is true, but we've made this the central repository. So in addition to providing power, it's able to be the central point for analytics, where you can tie environmental pieces to this. There's a security element. You can see electronic handle there. So we thought it would be really a great approach to not just provide power to the cabinet, but provide flexibility as customers want to grow and monitor without building on another set of nodes or infrastructure to overlay that. So that's core. As you think about power with Panduit, our PDUs are more than just providing power. There's a lot more intelligence built into that. And with that, this is the fourth area. I've talked a lot of Panduit products, right? But that intelligence, that smarts, whether it's, we have our software offering in the Smart Zone Cloud, Smart Zone for the power side of it, or SnapSense, right? You really can't have operation efficiencies and benefits and capacity planning without some level of visibility. I've used this for a while. This is like the dashboard when you're driving a high-end sports car. If you did not have a dashboard, you would not have any indication of what direction you're heading in, the speed you're going, oil pressure, tire pressure. That's like running your data center without some level of visibility. You need a dashboard to help go forward. Again, digital transformation is about pulling data, utilizing that data, managing it, and doing something intelligent with it. And this is sort of the orchestrator that allows you to get there. And here's an example when we talk about that PDU, right? It's more than just the functionality. There's a network controller in there that gives you that visibility across the board. It's central to that power infrastructure you're putting in. It gives you the ability to scale up for environmental controls or scale down. There's a security aspect, as I mentioned. But again, every PDU, we think we've really consolidated this and done a really nice job providing that value through a power system that's deployed in literally every data center. So with that, right, just to close and kind of review. So again, digital transformation is happening. There's no question it's going to continue to grow. Again, the Middle East is primed for all those reasons I discussed earlier. Right, there's going to be challenges, but there are going to be a tremendous amount of opportunities, right? Whether it's the technology side, the people side, operational side, culture side, data side, there's going to be a tremendous amount of opportunities as we move forward. As I mentioned more than a few times, it's a marathon, but it doesn't mean to sit back and wait. Get engaged with your customers, talk about what their IT roadmaps look like, their strategy, what their hybrid IT strategy looks like, and there's ways that we can attach and provide value. Get engaged with those customers, right? As I said, early in the process, right? This is more than just a project or a software project or hardware upgrade. These are companies trying to revamp their entire culture, entire customer journey. So it's going to take early engagement. As I mentioned, think about 400 gig first, and then think it back to 100 gig, as opposed to going from 10, 40, 100. Think about 400, what that looks like today, and work that back to the current environment. Looking at things differently, right? A different approach to design and the way you build and the way you operate. Look for those seamless migration plans. Again, this is the HD Flex. It might seem like it's a large system for today, but customers will grow into that. They're going to have that bandwidth, that rack space capability, the capacity that's going to help them grow and not rip and replace that physical layer infrastructure, right? We're not looking to over provision the data center. We want to right size it, but if you give a migration path, whether it's power or cooling or network connectivity, that's what we're talking about, right? Not over provisioning just for the sake of having an extra safety net there, but having a true migration plan to move forward. And then lastly, pretty obvious, but events like today, work with Trident, work with Panduit, the expertise. You're always going to get quality solutions and great solutions and answers from Panduit and Trident. So again, thank you for your time today. Again, those are the 4 primary product sets and approaches we would position to help make the data center of the future something that could support digital transformation as we move forward. And with that, I thank you again for your time and your patience in the remote format.